The landing craft lurched violently as another shell exploded nearby, spraying cold seawater over the packed soldiers inside. Sergeant John Robert Slaughter gripped his M1 Garand tighter, his knuckles white beneath the grime and salt. Around him, young men vomited into the bilge water. Others prayed silently, eyes squeezed shut. Some stared blankly at nothing, already dead inside before the ramp even dropped. Slaughter was different from the others in ways that went beyond his 34 years. At 230 pounds on a 5 feet 9 inches frame, he was the heaviest man in the landing craft by at least 60 pounds. In the cramped space, his bulk was impossible to ignore. Even now, mere minutes from hell itself, he could hear the whispers, the same whispers that had followed him since enlistment. Tubby's gonna sink like a stone with all that gear, but he don't make it 10 yards off his boat. Should have left Fatty back in England. The metallic taste of fear mixed with rage in Slaughter's mouth. 2 years. 2 years of being called too fat for combat. 2 years of officers recommending he push papers instead of fighting. 2 years of proving himself in training, only to be told his weight made him a liability. 2 years of watching thinner, weaker men get respect he'd earned but never received. The engine pitch changed. They were approaching Omaha Beach. In 18 hours, John Slaughter would kill 76 German soldiers, more than any other American on D-Day. He would prove that the greatest liability wasn't his weight. It was the assumption that weight mattered at all. But first, he had to survive the next 60 seconds. The landing craft shuddered as it scraped bottom. The ramp chains rattled. This is a story of how the military's fattest soldier became D-Day's deadliest warrior. March 15, 1910. Roanoke, Virginia. John Robert Slaughter entered the world in a farmhouse where the nearest doctor was 12 miles away and physical strength meant survival. His childhood wasn't measured in years, but in endless labor, dawn to dusk work that built the kind of muscle that doesn't come from gymnasiums or training programs. By age 10, Slaughter was hauling hay bales that grown men struggled with. By 15, he could lift feed sacks that required 2 workers to move. By 20, his forearms were thick as fence posts, his back broad as a barn door, his hands capable of bending horseshoes. The work never stopped. Plowing fields behind stubborn mules, repairing equipment with raw strength when tools failed, lifting, carrying, building, breaking, every single day, year after year. The weight came naturally, not from laziness or excess, but from muscle layered upon muscle, built through work that would have destroyed softer men. By his mid-20s, Slaughter weighed 210 pounds of solid farm forge power. In 1936, at age 26, he enlisted in the Virginia National Guard. The recruiting officer looked at his physical examination results and frowned at the numbers. Height, 5 feet 9 inches. Weight, 210 pounds. The chart said he should weigh 175 pounds maximum. You're 35 pounds over regulation weight. Officer said flatly. Slaughter looked down at his body. Not an ounce of fat visible. Pure working muscle. That weight's from farming, sir. I can outwork any man you've got. The officer was skeptical, but signed him anyway. The National Guard needed men, and Slaughter was clearly healthy despite exceeding the charts. For 5 years, he served weekend drills and summer training. His fitness scores were acceptable. His marksmanship was exceptional. He earned promotion to corporal based on performance. When he left the Guard in 1941, his record noted. Despite exceeding weight standards, soldier demonstrates adequate physical capability. Adequate. The word stung more than it should have. He wasn't adequate. He was exceptional. But the numbers on a scale said otherwise. December 7, 1941 changed everything. Pearl Harbor burned. America entered the war. At 31 years old, weighing 230 pounds, John Slaughter walked into a U.S. Army recruiting station ready to fight. The recruiting sergeant barely looked at him before shaking his head. Can't take you. You're 40 pounds over the weight limit for your height. Regulations are clear. I've got National Guard experience, Slaughter argued, his Virginia drawl thickening with frustration. 5 years. Good record. I can march, shoot, fight. The weight's muscle, not fat. Son, I don't make the rules. You're medically disqualified due to excessive weight. Slaughter planted his massive hands on the desk and leaned forward. My country is at war. I'm qualified. I'm experienced. And you're telling me no because of a number on a chart. The sergeant looked uncomfortable. Something about Slaughter's intensity, or maybe the visible power in his frame, made him reconsider. He made phone calls, filed paperwork. Eventually a waiver came through, but with conditions. A note in his file recommended assignment to supply, administration, or other non-combat duties where excessive body weight presents reduced liability. Reduced liability. Like he was defective merchandise being placed where he'd cause least damage. Slaughter reported to the 29th Infantry Division's 116th Regiment in early 1942. The mockery started immediately. Training Camp, 1942. Slaughter stood in formation with Company D, surrounded by lean young men mostly in their early 20s. Kids, really. Farm boys and city workers and college students. None weigh more than 170 pounds. All staring at the fat sergeant who didn't belong. Tubby! Someone shouted from the ranks. Laughter rippled through the company. The drill instructor didn't stop it. If anything, he smiled. That night, Slaughter heard the nickname spreading. Tubby, Fatty, Lard Ass. the creative cruelty of soldiers with too much time and too little discipline. His company commander, Captain Morrison, called him into the office after the first week. "Slaughter, I'm recommending you for reassignment to supply duties." "Sir, I enlisted to fight." "You're too heavy for frontline infantry. You'll slow down your unit. You'll struggle with force marches. You'll become a casualty quickly." Morrison's tone was matter-of-fact, not cruel. "Better to use you where your weight won't be a liability. You'd be valuable in supply chain management. We need good men there, too." "I can keep up, sir." "Let me prove it." Morrison looked doubtful but relented. "We'll see how you perform in training." Slaughter threw himself into proving his capability. Every morning run, he finished despite being slower than others. Every obstacle course, he completed despite struggling with exercises designed for lighter men. Every force march, he carried full equipment the entire distance without falling out. But the physical training instructors saw only his weight. They made him run extra miles to slim down. They put him on restricted diets that left him hungry and weak. They exempted him from certain exercises, assuming he couldn't complete them. The message was constant. Your weight makes you deficient regardless of actual performance. The other soldiers saw the treatment and absorbed the lesson. If the instructors treated Slaughter like he was inadequate, he must be inadequate. The mockery continued. "Fatty, tubby, too fat for combat. Should have stayed home. Gonna get someone killed." But Slaughter kept performing. He qualified expert with the M1 Garand rifle, outshooting most of his company. His tactical knowledge from National Guard experience made him valuable in training exercises. He could carry equipment loads that exhausted thinner soldiers. The only area where he consistently struggled was time runs requiring pure speed. Combat wasn't about running fast. Slaughter knew. Combat was about endurance, strength, determination, and the will to keep fighting when others quit. These qualities he possessed in abundance. October 1943. The 29th Division deployed to England to prepare for the invasion of France. British weather, limited training facilities, and garrison rations caused Slaughter to gain more weight. By March 1944, he weighed 240 pounds. Medical officers again recommended his reassignment to non-combat duties. His battalion commander agreed. "Slaughter, you're the fattest soldier in this battalion. You can't handle combat operations. I'm transferring you to regiment headquarters." Slaughter fought back with quiet intensity. "Sir, I completed every training evolution. I've proven I can carry combat loads. I've demonstrated tactical competence. I'm asking you to let me fight. It's not about competence. It's about physical capability. You're too heavy. Then let me prove it in combat. If I fail, reassign me, but give me the chance." The commander was exhausted by Slaughter's persistence. Against his better judgment, he allowed Slaughter to remain with Company D for the invasion. "But when you wash out, don't say I didn't warn you." June 5, 1944, the eve of D-Day. Company D received final briefings. They would land in the first wave at 0630 hours on a sector designated Dog Green. Intelligence suggested moderate German defenses. The landing would be difficult, but achievable. That night, Slaughter lay in his bunk listening to soldiers around him. Young men writing final letters home. Some praying, some crying quietly, some boasting about what they'd do to Germans tomorrow. Someone whispered loud enough for Slaughter to hear. "Bet Fatty don't make it off the beach. Gonna sink in the water with all that weight." Slaughter said nothing. Tomorrow would speak louder than any words tonight. The landing craft ramp dropped with a metallic crash. German machine gun fire immediately swept across the opening. The first man out was cut in half, his body tumbling into the water already stained red. The second man took 3 rounds to the chest and fell backward into the soldiers behind him. The third man made it 2 steps before his head exploded in pink mist. Slaughter was positioned midway back. He watched men die in the time it takes to draw breath. The beach beyond was held manifest. Bodies floating in surf. Soldiers crawling through sand swept by constant gunfire. Artillery shells exploding in geysers of water and blood. Every instinct screamed to stay in the landing craft's relative protection. But staying meant dying when German artillery found them. Slaughter jumped off the side into shoulder-deep water. The weight of his equipment, over 70 pounds of rifle ammunition, grenades, supplies, pulled him under instantly. Salt water filled his nose and mouth. The weight that everyone said would kill him was trying to do exactly that. But farm-built strength pushed him off the bottom. Powerful legs drove him to the surface. Lighter men, equally burdened by equipment, struggled more to stay afloat. Slaughter's weight gave him stability, gave him mass to push against water's resistance. Machine gun fire churned the water around him. Bullets struck his pack. One grazed his helmet with a sound like hitting an anvil. Men were dying everywhere, sinking with equipment, shot in the water, making it to beach only to be killed on sand. Slaughter waded towards shore through the killing zone. Each step was agony. Each breath might be his last. German gunners swept the beach methodically, cutting down anyone who moved. He reached the sand and crawled behind beach obstacles that provided minimal cover. Around him, Company D was being slaughtered. Of 197 men in the first wave, over 100 were already dead or wounded in the first 10 minutes. Survivors huddled behind obstacles, pinned down, unable to advance or retreat. This was the moment everyone predicted Slaughter would fail. The fat soldier facing combat's ultimate test. The liability finally exposed. Instead, Slaughter did something that would echo through D-Day history. He identified the nearest German machine gun position, a concrete bunker 200 yards up the beach. The bunker's gun was sweeping parallel to the shore, killing anyone who moved. Every soldier who tried reaching it had died. Slaughter started crawling toward it, using shell craters, obstacles, slight depressions, and sand, moving when German attention was elsewhere, freezing when guns swept near. The 230-pound sergeant moved with surprising efficiency, his low center of gravity and powerful arms pulling him across sand that was slick with blood. 30 minutes to cover 200 yards. He reached a disabled tank 30 yards from the bunker. From here, he could see the gun's firing slit, the barrel sweeping back and forth, dealing death with mechanical precision. Slaughter pulled a grenade, calculated distance and trajectory, waited for the gun to point away, then threw with all the power built from years of farm work. The grenade arced perfectly and disappeared into the firing slit. The explosion inside the concrete bunker was devastating. The machine gun went silent. German soldiers inside were dead or dying. Slaughter immediately moved toward the next position. The fat sergeant they'd mocked was advancing when everyone else was pinned down. Word spread fast along Omaha Beach. Someone's moving up. Someone's killing Germans. Someone's clearing positions. At 0800, Slaughter threw grenades into a German trench, killing 4 soldiers manning a machine gun. At 0830, he uses M1 Garand to drop 3 Germans trying to reposition an artillery piece. 3 shots, 3 kills at 150 yards. At 0900, he eliminated another bunker with 2 grenades, killing 5 more. Other soldiers began following his example. Seeing that movement was possible, they started advancing. Small groups coordinated attacks on German strong points. But Slaughter was consistently at the front, the heaviest soldier on the beach leading lighter men forward. His weight, far from being a liability, gave him advantages. When pushing through obstacles, his mass provided momentum. When carrying extra grenades and ammunition, his strength allowed loads that exhausted others. When firing from unstable positions, his low center of gravity provided stability. Between 0930 and noon, Slaughter participated in eliminating 6 more German positions. 2 Germans killed with rifle fire at 100 yards. 3 killed with grenades in a fighting position. 4 killed when he threw grenades into a bunker. 5 killed when he led a squad assault on a trench system. The soldiers stopped calling him Tubby. They started calling him Sergeant Slaughter, and their voices carried respect instead of mockery. Captain Morrison, who'd called him too fat for combat, watched Slaughter eliminate position after position with methodical efficiency. After watching him kill 8 Germans in a single bunker assault, Morrison radioed battalion. Sergeant Slaughter is the most effective soldier on this beach. By noon, American forces had pushed inland. The immediate crisis was over. The invasion, nearly catastrophic at dawn, was succeeding partly because one fat sergeant refused to stay pinned down. Slaughter's confirmed kills by noon, 38 Germans. He'd used approximately 120 rounds from his M1 Garand, achieving roughly a 30% hit rate under combat conditions that would make most men spray bullets wildly. He'd thrown approximately 20 grenades with 18 hitting targets. His movement across the beach and up the bluffs, all while carrying full equipment plus extra ammunition and grenades, prove his weight was irrelevant to combat effectiveness. The man they called Too Fat was the most effective killer on Omaha Beach. If this story of prejudice destroyed by performance is blowing your mind, smash that subscribe button right now. We're about to cover the afternoon and evening when Slaughter's kill count nearly doubles. You won't want to miss what happens next. American forces pushed inland toward the village of Vierville-sur-Mer, approximately 1 kilometer from the beach. German defenders had fortified stone buildings throughout the village. Machine guns covered approach roads. Snipers occupied upper floors and church towers. Previous attacks had failed with heavy casualties. Company D needed a new approach. Slaughter volunteered to lead a flanking movement through a sunken road German defenders weren't watching carefully. He led a squad of 12 men through the covered route, advancing 500 meters undetected to the village's eastern edge where Germans weren't expecting attack. At 1,400 hours, Slaughter's squad attacked. He threw grenades through windows of the first building, then entered while defenders were stunned. 3 Germans died to close-range rifle fire before they could react. The second building required different tactics. Slaughter climbed to the roof, dropped grenades through a ventilation hole, then covered the door as surviving Germans tried escaping. For more dead, the surprise attack created chaos among German defenders. They'd expected attacks from the beach side, not from the flank. Officers tried repositioning forces, exposing themselves to American fire from multiple directions. Between 1,400 and 1,600 hours, Slaughter's squad fought through 5 buildings. Each assault followed the same pattern. Grenades to stun defenders, immediate entry while Germans were disorganized, close quarter shooting, rapid movement to next position. Slaughter personally killed 14 Germans during this 2-hour period. His squad accounted for over 30 German casualties total. At 16:30, German forces began withdrawing from Vierville. Slaughter positioned his squad to fire on withdrawing troops. From 200 yards range, he engaged Germans moving through open ground toward fallback positions. 9 more Germans died to Slaughter's marksmanship over the next 30 minutes. Every shot carefully aimed, most shots hitting their targets. The rifle skills he'd honed despite constant criticism about his weight proved exceptional. By 1800 hours, Vierville was secured. American forces controlled the village and roads leading inland. Slaughter's confirmed kills by 1800, 61 Germans. The fat sergeant had killed more enemies in 12 hours than most infantry soldiers killed in their entire military careers. And the day wasn't over. German commanders understood that if they couldn't push Americans off the beaches on D-Day, the invasion would succeed. They committed available reserves to night counterattacks, attempting to recapture coastal positions. The attacks focused on villages like Vierville that controlled beach exits. Slaughter's squad was assigned to hold buildings on the village's southern edge. Intelligence suggested German attacks would come from this direction. Americans had limited time to prepare defensive positions before darkness fell and Germans attacked. The first attack came at 1900 hours. Approximately 100 German soldiers from the 352nd Infantry Division attacked Vierville from the south, supported by artillery fire that forced American defenders to take cover. Slaughter positioned in a second-floor window with good fields of fire. His M1 Garand allowed rapid, accurate shooting. He killed 3 Germans in the initial assault, then 4 more as they tried regrouping, then 2 more as they withdrew under concentrated American fire. The German attack broke. They'd suffered approximately 25 casualties without breaking through. The second attack came at 2000 hours. Larger force, approximately 200 men, attacking from a different direction. This attack achieved more initial success. German soldiers reached American positions and engaged in close quarters fighting. Several buildings changed hands multiple times. Slaughter's building was attacked by approximately 30 German soldiers. They threw grenades through windows, then rushed inside. Slaughter and his squad fought room to room. He killed 4 Germans in close quarters fighting on the ground floor. 3 more died on the second floor. The Americans held, but barely. Fighting continued through the evening. Germans launched 4 separate attacks between 1800 and midnight. Each was repulsed but caused American casualties. Defenders grew exhausted. Ammunition ran low. Medical supplies were consumed treating wounded. But Americans held their positions, and Slaughter fought through all 4 attacks. He was everywhere fighting was heaviest. When machine gun positions were overrun, he counterattacked to recapture them. When Germans breached buildings, he led the defense. When ammunition ran short, he redistributed ammunition from casualties. His final confirmed kills came during the 4th German attack at approximately 2,330 hours. A German squad of 8 soldiers attempted infiltrating American positions using darkness for concealment. Slaughter detected them through sound. He waited until they were within 30 yards. Then he threw 4 grenades in rapid succession. All 8 Germans were killed or wounded. By midnight on June 6, German attacks had ceased. German commanders recognized they couldn't dislodge American forces. The invasion had succeeded. D-Day was over. In the gray dawn of June 7th, Captain Morrison walked through Vierville conducting after-action assessments. Bodies, American and German, lay throughout the village. Exhausted soldiers slept where they fought. Medics treated wounded. The smell of cordite, blood, and death hung over everything. Morrison found Slaughter sitting against a stone wall, cleaning his rifle. The sergeant's uniform was torn, caked with dry blood, some of his mostly not, and blackened by powder burns. His face was gaunt with exhaustion, but his hands moved steadily, methodically maintaining his weapon. "Sergeant, I need your after-action report." Slaughter looked up. "Sir." Morrison pulled out a notebook. Over the next hour, he interviewed Slaughter and other soldiers about the previous day's combat. The confirmed kill count grew as witnesses provided details. Beach fighting, 38 Germans. Village assault, 14 Germans. Withdrawal engagement, 9 Germans. Night defensive fighting, 15 Germans. Total confirmed kills, 76 Germans. Morrison stared at the number. In 18 hours, one man had killed 76 enemy soldiers. More than any other American soldier had achieved on D-Day. Accomplished by the man Morrison had called too fat for combat. "Sergeant Slaughter," Morrison said quietly, "I owe you an apology." Slaughter continued cleaning his rifle. "Sir, I told you that you were too fat for frontline combat. I recommended you for supply duties. I doubted your capability." Morrison's voice was tight, with something between shame and amazement. "I was completely wrong." Slaughter finally looked up, and Morrison saw something in those eyes that made him uncomfortable. Not anger, not triumph. Just a weary knowledge that vindication required killing 76 men to earn respect that should have been given from the start. "Yes, sir, you were wrong." Morrison cleared his throat. "I'm recommending you for the Distinguished Service Cross. Your actions yesterday were extraordinary. You led when others were pinned down. You eliminated positions when others couldn't move. You demonstrated combat effectiveness that..." He trailed off, searching for words. That a fat man shouldn't have? Slaughter finished. That any man rarely demonstrates, Morrison corrected. But they both knew what he'd almost said. Word of Slaughter's D-Day performance spread through the division. The fat sergeant who killed 76 Germans became legendary. Soldiers who'd mocked him weeks earlier now spoke of him with awe. Officers who'd recommended his reassignment now praised his combat prowess. The military bureaucracy that had questioned his capability now used his story for propaganda. But the recognition came with bitter irony. The same system that called Slaughter too fat now celebrated him as a hero. Respect came only after he'd proven himself through extraordinary violence. The assumption was never that the initial judgment was wrong, only that exceptional performance could overcome deficiency. John Slaughter received the Distinguished Service Cross for his D-Day actions. The citation described his extraordinary heroism during the Normandy invasion. It became one of the war's most notable individual performances. But even after D-Day, military medical officers suggested he should lose weight for health reasons. His commanders, despite his combat record, still noted his excessive weight in fitness reports. The bureaucracy couldn't let go of the idea that soldiers who didn't fit height-weight standards were somehow deficient, even when combat had proven otherwise. Slaughter continued serving through the war. He participated in operations in France, Belgium, and Germany. He was wounded twice, but recovered and returned to duty. By war's end, he'd killed over 100 German soldiers confirmed, making him one of the war's most effective infantry soldiers. After the war, Slaughter returned to Virginia farming. He rarely discussed his service publicly. When asked about D-Day, he'd acknowledge he'd been there, but wouldn't detail his actions. The killing weighed on him. 76 men had died by his hand in one day. Each death had been necessary for survival and mission accomplishment, but they still haunted him. He lived quietly until 1998, dying at age 88. His obituary mentioned his D-Day service, but didn't detail his 76 confirmed kills. To his community, he was simply a farmer and veteran. But his story endures in military leadership training as an example of how regulations can conflict with effectiveness. It demonstrates that capability comes from multiple factors, not from fitting arbitrary standards. It shows that judging people based on appearance rather than performance misses what matters most. Slaughter's story resonates because it challenges fundamental assumptions. Military height-weight standards exist for legitimate reasons. Excessive weight can indicate poor health, affect endurance, complicate medical treatment. But Slaughter demonstrated that statistical correlations don't apply universally to individuals. His weight came from muscle built through farm labor, not sedentary lifestyle. His strength exceeded what thinner soldiers possessed. His endurance, proven through 18 hours of continuous combat, exceeded normal expectations. The chart said he was too fat. Reality said the charts were measuring the wrong things. Modern military still struggles with this issue. Height-weight standards remain rigid despite recognition that body composition matters more than weight alone. Soldiers with high muscle mass are sometimes penalized for exceeding weight limits. Athletes who excel in combat are sometimes rejected based on numbers that ignore individual capability. The broader lesson extends beyond military context. Society constantly judges people based on appearance rather than ability. Overweight people face discrimination in employment, education, and social situations based on assumptions about their capabilities. Slaughter's story proves these assumptions can be completely wrong. They mocked his weight, called him tubby, fatty lard ass, told him he was too heavy for combat, recommended he push papers instead of fighting, doubted he could keep up handle equipment, survived the physical demands of warfare, looked at 230 pounds on a 5 feet 9 inches frame, and decided he was a liability. They were wrong about everything. June 6, 1944. Omaha Beach. German machine guns sweeping the sand. Artillery exploding in the surf. Men dying by the hundreds. Chaos that broke stronger men than most. The fat sergeant they'd mocked waded through the killing zone, advanced when others were pinned down, eliminated German positions with methodical efficiency. 38 Germans died on the beach, killed by Slaughter's grenades and rifle fire. 14 Germans died in Vierville as he led the assault that captured the village. 9 Germans died during the withdrawal as he fired at retreating troops. 15 Germans died during night counterattacks as he defended positions against German attempts to retake the village. 76 confirmed kills in 18 hours, more than any other American soldier achieved on D-Day. Accomplished by the man they called too fat for combat. Hours after the mockery, 76 enemies were dead. The officers who doubted him watched him prove them wrong 76 times. The system that questioned his capabilities celebrated him with America's second highest military decoration. The military that called him too fat used his story for propaganda about American soldier effectiveness. But the celebration couldn't erase the wrongness of the initial judgment. Slaughter knew all along his weight was irrelevant. He'd tried explaining that strength came from work, not from low weight. He demonstrated his capabilities despite constant criticism. Nobody listened until he'd killed 76 Germans in one day. Then they listened. Then they understood. Then they admitted they'd been wrong. The story teaches that judging people based on appearance misses what matters. That charts and standards measure some things, but ignore others. That capability comes from character, skill, and determination, not from fitting arbitrary metrics. That assumptions about physical limitations often crumble when confronting reality. that the person everyone dismisses might prove most capable of all. John Slaughter, the fat sergeant, the hero of Omaha Beach, the man who killed 76 Germans while everyone else was still processing their prejudice. The soldier who proved that weight charts measure weight, not courage. That appearance indicates nothing about capability. That assumptions about limitations often reflect our biases more than other people's realities. They mocked his weight. Hours later, 76 enemies were dead, and every assumption lay shattered on Normandy sand alongside them. The deadliest lesson of D-Day wasn't about tactics or firepower. It was about the fatal mistake of confusing appearance with ability, of trusting charts over character, of assuming that the person who doesn't fit your standards can't exceed your expectations. Sergeant John Robert Slaughter proved that lesson 76 times in one extraordinary, blood-soaked day, and the people who mocked him never made that mistake again.